All right. Good evening to everyone, and greetings and blessings of the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha to all of you. So let us begin our session by paying respect and homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. I pay my respect and homage to him, the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened Buddha. Dear Venerable Bhantes, Bhikkhus, Bhikkhunis, Ayas, it is such a great joy for all of us to meet on Zoom platform bi-weekly, bringing the Dhamma to the people who are pretty interested in the wisdom of the Buddha, to bring light and hope to the people around the world. And this is such a great service I believe we are doing in the Western Hemisphere. So we are live on Facebook and YouTube. So I would like to make a kind request from all our friends who are watching us on Facebook and YouTube. If possible, please. Uparatanayaka Hamadro, he's joining us from Virginia, the Washington, D.C. Then we have Bhante Damrakita joining us from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. We have Venerable Tridal joining us from Florida, USA. We have Bhante Sanat Vihari joining us from Los Angeles, California, USA. And we have Bhante Nanda joining us from Long Island, USA. Then we have Venerable Chanda Nanda joining us from Ottawa. And we have Bhante Sankicha joining us from Detroit, Michigan, USA. And then we have Venerable Bhante Anuruddha joining us from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. We have Venerable Kalabovila Ananda joining us from the same center, Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. And we have Venerable Kotabala Sumeda, who is also joining from Ottawa, Canada. So I would like to respectfully welcome all of you to our bi-weekly sutra discussion. And so today we have a very interesting topic. For this discussion, we also have some friends who joined us on Zoom platform, our lay friends. I also would like to welcome all of you to this discussion. And I also would like to give a warm welcome to our friends who are watching us on YouTube and Facebook Live. And once again, if possible, please share this program in your social media timeline for the greater benefit of the people around the world. So today we have a very interesting discussion. The topic is it harder to live a Buddhist life now than in the time of the Buddha? This is a question asked by one of our friends who watch this program on YouTube, also in Facebook. And I think this friend would like to know the honest feelings of the venerable monks and nuns, whether you think it is harder to live the Buddhist life now than the time of the Buddha. And this is an open discussion. If you would like to, share your insights, your experience, or tell a story, I would like to kindly and respectfully invite the venerable monks and nuns to raise your hand so that I can invite you to speak up. So far, nobody has raised the hand. Oh, okay, I see. Bante Kusala, you just raised your hand. So, Bante Kusala, what do you think?
Thank you, Bante, for this wonderful topic and the discussion. I wanted to share an initial thought that when I will take a modern example, like when Steve Jobs passed away, Apple did not vanish from the world. So the practices they have been doing, they continue producing wonderful things. And speaking about the business world, their stocks have so much value, and they are becoming innovative, and they are surviving in the world. So when the Buddha passed away, he did not want his dispensation, sasana, to vanish with him. He did not appoint any monk as the successor, but I know that he said discipline and doctrine, Vinaya and Dhamma and Vinaya will be the successor. And if your conduct is according to Dhamma and Vinaya, you will do fine. And I think we have a huge organization of monks, and we have places, and we have spiritual practices available for us. The Buddha himself, has given us the middle path, and I think the middle path can be practiced without time constraint and without worrying about when it will be applicable. I think it is applicable for any time. But I think the conditions, such as having a Buddha around, will be so helpful at this time. If we have a Buddha now, I think we wouldn't be doing so many things that we are doing. And if we have a Buddha now, I think we'll think of him as we focus on our day's practice, because we have him as the spiritual guide and the teacher. But because of the nature's way, Buddha is no more with us. So again, we don't have supporting Sangha as in the time of the Buddha. But if you really look for a spiritual home, many centers are around, and if you approach them, they will support you. It depends, there are many flavors. It's like ice cream flavors, many traditional monks from different places, and you might be wondering if this is the place that is right for us. It's just like that, conditions and people and places that we hear from the scripture, from the Buddhist sutras, will be different and may not be exactly how we feel the present day world. But I think the practice, the Dhamma, the teachings, because the Buddha says we can see the Dhamma within this very own body. And as long as we have a human body, we have Dhamma close to us. It's only I think the question is about how much support we have from people around. I think the Buddha himself answers this question by saying, you are your own creator, you are your own guide. Attahi attano nato, kohi nato parosya, where can we look for another refuge when you are your own refuge? I think when we think in those terms, I think we feel inspired and we look within. But again, it would be nice to have a Buddha around. It would be nice to have kind of conditions like in the Buddha's days. But they had their own set of problems at that time, and we have our own set of problems in the present day. So with that understanding, I think we can approach the practice and be firm on our practice. And Dhamma has this nature of giving us the results almost immediately, sandittika. And that way you can see it is working, and that experience itself will be your guide. I think we can start the discussion from there and see what other ideas our Bhantes, venerable monks and nuns have. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante Kusala, for sharing these encouraging words with us. And of course, we would always think Buddha lived in the 6th century BCE. That means 2,600 years ago. And by then, we know that it wasn't a globalized world. We don't find any reference to global village in the textbook. It was a very close-knit community they had. And by then, maybe there were no complications. But we are living in the 21st century, a technocentric world. And now we have a global village. We meet all kinds of people, all kinds of things. And with the technology, there are more complications. At the same time, it made possible for us to meet like this. So do we think we have more challenges now, more complications now, more, or are we facing any challenges as opposed to the teachings of the Buddha, or are we having any hard time? These are some questions that I think I have received from some friends previously. So Bhante Shantasobana from Los Angeles, what do you think? Please share your experiences.
Thank you very much, all the venerable sirs. And especially, actually, this is a very interesting topic, and I really appreciate our venerable Saranapala choose this topic, because most of time when I go to schools, the children always ask this question. And when it comes to that, I think we are in the best timeline when it comes to spiritual development. Because the very reason we are here in this time, so then we have to get the best out of our life. When it comes to enlightenment and the Buddha's teaching, it is not the world that happening outside us. It's mostly the world means that our head to toes, this body, and understanding regarding the 5 aggregates is the understanding the world, not the outside or depending on the outside opinion. So when it comes to that, especially nowadays we have so much information, but when it comes to our human life, according to neuroscience, that our body also naturally keep growing. As example, before 2000 years, that our brain was totally different, and through these human civilizations, we already change our brain also. And as you know, after this 2000 years, that now this new generation have new kind of way of thinking and understanding, kind of like a millennials. So like that, when it comes to us, the growth that happened in our brain has so much resources tuned to the nature. And so that is one of the important thing. And other thing is, when it comes to our inner development, the one of the major important thing that we have to look more than any other things, we depend on our mirror neurons. So that means what other human does is more important for us. So when it comes to that, we have so much past experience from our enlightened masters and the monks and the community of the Sangha. And so it is available today. More than any other time, we have so much information available for us. So I think this is one of the best time period we go through. The very reason, I think, because after this 2020, the human brain start to shift to different level from awareness to depend on machines and technology. So now we are in a kind of like a timeline, because after another 10 years, 20 years, like these children, the way they grow, more than the awareness and recognition themselves, they're more depending from machines. As example, today we have this conversation, but by the time in the future, maybe within another 10 years, people are going to have conversation with their own machines. It's now happening, like Siri. Sometimes most of people have conversation with the Siri, you know? But still we are capable to have this human connection. So that is one of the key point when it comes to understanding and regarding enlightenment. So I think this is one of the major important timeline that we keep passing. So only thing is, we have to question, are we ready to get that opportunity?
Now,
That
let me
is the
ask you
key.
a question. Let me ask you a question, Venerable
Yes.
Sobana. Now, of course, I know you're also very active monk in California, Los Angeles. I see a lot of activities. Now, have you personally faced any challenge that was kind of against your principle, or how did you face it? How did you overcome it?
No, actually, that this is what I think in California so far in my life experience in these 12 years, I had the best opportunities here.
Okay.
You know? And because this is the way I always look. And when the challenge come for us, that is the moment that we have to face for that and see what we know or what we practice going to work or not. Because if there is no challenge, or if there is no resistance come against our practice, even within ourselves and within the society, it's not going to become a kind of like a practice. No, there is nothing to do then. When we open the refrigerator, everything is there. When we put our hand on pocket, if the money is there. When you turn on the car, if everything works perfect. If you go to the road, that all the green lights, there are no traffic, then you will not going to experience what is life. No. Yeah. So whatever the challenge come, and brush up through that challenge is the important. So when it comes to that, and according to this, one of the important thing in this enlightened path is contentment. So aligning contentment towards the enlightenment is the key point. So that is what mostly I teach for the children. So aligning contentment means that who we are so far in this journey is not happened by mistake. This all happened through a reason, and today who I am is a journey towards the enlightenment, not I am disconnected from my future. So that way I am aligning, and I am slowly adjusting myself and keeping the path. So then, as we all know, the enlightenment doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight. It is a process. So are we satisfied already so far in this journey? Then in the future, it's going to happen. And as we all know, regarding the Venerable Vakkali, and he was in front of the Buddha. Every day he was like to see the Buddha in person. But what the Buddha's advice was, Vakkali, this is useless. Just go and practice yourself. So then when it comes to life, we have to question ourselves, are we ready? If we are ready, then it's going to be a great blessing for us. And there is a story, I think that this Temiya Jataka, the Temiya, long time ago, there was a king and he had a son, his name called Temiya. So he was very young, active, well-educated young boy. And one day he came to his father and told that I don't like this lifestyle. I want to go to jungle. I want to like practice kind of like ascetic lifestyle. So the father thought, he's crazy, because he's going to be the king. Now he's going to give up this everything and try to go escape from this. And he told, you can't go like this. You have responsibilities to take care of this kingdom. But by the time he told, no, I don't like, give me some times, I want to go, and maybe I'll come back. So then the father thought, so he's young, he's kind of like not listening to me. He told, okay, get your lesson, and told, okay, if you like, you can leave the palace. And this young boy left the palace and went to the jungle, and the father was waiting 1 day, 2 days. After 1 week, he thought, oh, he will come back, but he didn't. After 1 year, he didn't come back. And then all other ministers and the people and everybody asked, where the prince? Because he is going to be the next king. And then the king told, oh, he left the palace. I don't know where he is. He didn't come back. And then by the time everybody gathered and everybody started to look this young boy in the middle of the jungle, because they need him as the king. And so then finally the king found out this young boy in the middle of the jungle without any kind of like a comfort, without any shelter, without any kind of proper food. And after 1 year, he found out this young boy, his son, and was so healthy and comfortable, and he's looked so happy. And the father asked, how you used to live like this? How you survived? Because I thought maybe wild animal or the very dangerous people live in the jungle. Maybe I thought you already dead. Then he told, oh, this is my principle. Atitang nanu sochanti nappajappanti nagatang paccupannena yapenti tena vanno pasidati. I didn't dwell in past. I was not dreaming regarding my future. I used to live in the present moment, focusing to whatever in front of me. So that's why I'm like this.
Okay.
So that life principle, I think, wherever we are, if we capable to that aligning our moment, that means developing contentment towards that where we heading. And I think out of any situation in any moment, you can get the best. Because why we missing the best most of time? Disturbed mind. That disturbed mind come out of unsatisfaction. So if you develop a kind of like a satisfaction wherever you are with any situation, I think this is a timeline that we can get the best. Because when it go towards the enlightenment, especially when we practice the meditation, one of the key elements that we have to have the restful life and the physical mental comfort. Amazing. More than any other time it's available for us. But sometimes we have nature to not to listen to that. So it is nothing to do with the timeline. That is what we need practice.
Yeah, thank you very much, Shanta Sobara. You actually shed a lot of lights regarding today's topic, and even telling that story. And I think this is making a very interesting discussion for us now. So now I would like to go to Venerable Ananda, who raised his hand. He would like to contribute something to this discussion. And Venerable Ananda, I know you became a monk at the 30s. And do you think, is it harder to live a Buddhist life now than in the time of the Buddhas? What's your experience?
Thank you, Venerables, for inviting me here, and dear Kalyana Mitras. So I think it's a very useful and an interesting topic today. Like Bhante Kusala mentioned, Buddhism itself is not time-bound. But having said that, we have also learned in scriptures that there are Shunya Kalpas, where no Buddha is born. And we are in a fortunate kalpa where the messengers are there, message is alive. So it's a nice thing to have. It would have been even nicer to have Buddha right by our sides, even in our Zoom forum. That would have been really nice. But unfortunately, we don't have that. But like Venerable Shanta Sobana mentioned, we are living in a very interesting timeline of the history of time. So to look into that in a little bit of an in an anthropological way or a socialistic way, that we find few regions of human civilization where there were the early hunter-gatherers living in an early communist society where they bartered, everything was self-sustainable. Then we moved into a stage where the feudalism was present, largely the Buddhist era and the post-Buddhist era, where the feudalism structure was available. And then we have moved to a new world since the 1500s that where it's been more capitalistic based, and the society has been by and large very liberal and I would say more civilized compared to the world back in the day. Now the word civilized, again, if you take the word civilization and this particular word civic means living in towns. Civic means towns. So when people started moving from jungle to small nucleus villages and then to town, they have been certain changes. And I think a very important change is that people have established these things called the virtues. Because in the jungle, the most powerful one, the rule of the jungle is the most powerful one is the winner, and he can rip off from anyone who's not so powerful. But then when we got into civilizations, this thing called the virtues develop. So I think more and more we get civilized, it's easier for someone to stick to the virtues. For example, I have practiced being a vegetarian for some time back in the day. I found it very easy because I have the options. And I was living in the Middle East region for some time, and even where there are no crops, because of the modern technology, I had vegetarian options. But imagine back in the day, 2000 years ago, 1500 years ago, if I'm in Middle East, for me to become a vegetarian would have been really hard. So in that sense, for a person to stick to his virtues, I think this is a fantastic time. On the other hand, I think it's a very interesting time because Bhante Shantasoban also mentioned the information availability. Now, from UK to Sri Lanka to China, all the way up to North America, we are in one single forum, thanks to Zoom and internet and voice over internet. However, this also gives us this information overflow, where there's a lot of unwanted junk on YouTube regarding any concept, meditation, mindfulness, Buddhism, whatever you go through, there's a lot of good as well as there's a lot of bad. Now, why I say bad is not necessarily they are bad by content itself, but it's not a live discussion. It's like a one-way streamed record, which is on a server, and we go and start referring that without understanding the context. Now, in that sense, it could be really bad. It could be very misleading. So in that sense, there's a negativity. But the most interesting thing I see is that compared to the olden eras where the hunter-gatherers or the feudalistic societies were, in this era, I find it most interesting, like Bhante Shanta mentioned, that we are very satisfied with our basic needs. If we refer to Maslow's pyramid of hierarchy, our food, security, housing, they're actually in a very much better shape than what it used to be back in the day. Now we know Sri Lanka facing an economic crisis, we are sort of going back in time where certain things are not met. But in a normal living condition in this 21st century, our basic needs are more or less satisfied. Our security needs, food needs, like Bhante said, back in the day, 100 years ago, people didn't have food stocked and piled in their homes. They have to go out and get them. But now we open the fridge, there's a lot of calories inside the fridge, inside the refrigerator. So in that sense, it's very interesting, which leads to the next stage of Maslow's hierarchy, which is the self-actualization. So more and more your basic needs are satisfied, people have availability to think of more philosophical questions. What's my purpose of existence? What's the whole life about? I see the same thing when I initially got ordained. I first stayed in Buttala in a cave temple where it was a very remote cave temple. And when I spoke to people there, me coming from mostly cities, Kandy and Colombo, I figured that in Surya, the life is all about survival. Elephants are roaming, and after 4 p.m. you're not supposed to go out on the roads because there are wild elephants roaming and you could get struck. Even the temple that I got ordained there, the elephants have struck that temple recently, taking out all the crops and everything. So people there, they do not have time to think of this more important questions in life. I say more important in the sense of self-actualization. So their lives are about survival. But now we have transformed into a place where we have enough time to spend on thinking self-actualization needs. So in that sense, it's good. And another thing is that in Buddhism, we talk a lot about how mind is so elusive of certain things, how the mind is projecting a reality for ourselves. And very interestingly, we find Elon Musk coming up with a neural link and then augmented reality. If you take a phone and if you take out your camera, even in this Zoom platform, I can change my virtual background, add a different face. So that whole illusion is much more prominent compared to back in the day. Now, back in the day, in Buddha's time, there are certain examples that Buddha has taken. I can't remember the exact sutra, but Buddha says of a painting. That painting, what he says there is that our mind is even more beautiful and complex and deceiving, even compared to this painting. I can't remember the exact name of that painting. I think it's a painting. It's probably, it's a holographic equivalent of back in Buddha's time. So in that sense, to understand the elusive nature of mind, I think it's fantastic. However, there comes a negative side. You can also get absorbed and get stuck in a virtual reality. Like take social media. I have watched this fantastic sort of a scientific fiction on Black Mirror, where people get stuck in a social media, on a social media driven culture, and everything is based on how people judge you on social media. So in that sense, we can get entangled with that and lose our perspective. So I think coming back to our topic, is it hard? I think every time period has its own pros and cons, but I'm very happy that I'm in this time frame, because I think it's a easy time frame compared to, getting killed in your 30s or 40s. I mean, living for 30, 40 years old back in the day would have been a challenge, but now people live for 70s, 80s. So I think it's a very interesting time. And like I said in the beginning, like Bhante Kusal said, having Buddha here in this forum would be fantastic. But I'm still happy because what he preached, the Dhamma, is not time bound.
Thank you, Venerable Ananda, for sharing your encouraging words and insights. And I think, as you may remember, Sigmund Freud also authored a book. The name of the book is called Civilization and Discontent. So as people became civilized, people also became very discontented, very unhappy. So there are a lot of challenges. I think we are not going into that direction yet. So we are talking about whether life is more difficult than the time of the Buddha. So Venerable Anuruddha from Cambridge, Canada. So what's your take on this?
Thank you, Venerable Sirs, inviting us for this discussion. Actually, it's a really interesting topic, this question.
Yeah.
For the direct answer for the question, it's yes. Actually, it's harder for us to practice the Buddhist lifestyle in this era than the Lord Buddha's actual. I mean, when the Lord Buddha was there, lived in life. So it's harder. Actually, the direct answer is yes. But then the other side, as all the Venerable says highlighted, like Bhante Santa Shobhana and Bhante Kusala and Bhante Ananda also, we are living in this era. So we have to look at the way of practicing the real Buddhist lifestyle in this era, because we have no other option to do anything. So we can't go back to the past and we can't go to the future. So that is actually Lord Buddha's message. This the main the core teaching was. So because of that, we have to look at the ways of practicing this Lord Buddha's lifestyle in this era. So I see few challenges in this era, mainly because of the lifestyle of the present society. As all the other Venerables has highlighted, the information era, which began early 90s, and then it was popular early 2000s. And now it has come to the era where it was the most developed era where we lived. So in this era, right now, like what's happening in this whole world is people sharing their experiences so much with so much of information. So other people mostly getting that experiences as information, and they are thinking that that's their experience. So I think that is the one of the main challenges in this era when we are going to practice this Buddhist lifestyle, because the Buddhist lifestyle always go with the experiential learning. That is what Lord Buddha highlighted. That is the one and only way of understanding the Lord Buddha's Dhamma and understanding ourselves. By understanding ourselves and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana, enlightenment. So to do that, we have to be aware about ourselves. We have to be aware about our experiences, and through that experiential learning, only we can actually attain supreme bliss of Nibbana. The attaining supreme bliss of Nibbana means getting rid of all the kind of psychological suffering, nothing else. So getting rid of all the psychological suffering, we have to be aware about ourselves, and we have to be aware about the experiences that we are having in this every single moment, and be being with that experiences. And by having that awareness, we can understand the way of the suffering happening within ourselves. That is the one and only way of getting rid of this suffering. But because of that experiential sharing, and people are thinking that the knowledge is an experience. So, but the knowledge and understanding is clearly two different things, as I see. So that is what Lord Buddha highlighted. The experiential learning is the one and only way to understand the suffering. Because when it is happening, we can see it within ourselves, how it is happening. So as a fact, all of us know that the attachment or the tanha is the cause of suffering, but we know it as a knowledge. We have to understand that. To understand that, we have to see the happening of suffering within ourselves because of the attachment. When you are being aware about yourself, you can sense how this attachment, the attachment, when the attachment changes, how the suffering changes within ourselves. With that understanding only, we can get rid of the attachment, because we can't get rid of the attachments by force. So because of that, I think it's a little bit harder to practice Lord Buddha's Dhamma in this era. But as Buddhist monk, what our responsibility is to make other people practice this lifestyle in this era, because actually in the Lord Buddha's era, the experiential learning was the way of learning something. Lord Buddha even put a rule to the students to be with their teacher monk at least 5 years. Be with them at least 5 years, because that living experience will be the way of understanding. Because when you are living with that teacher for 5 years, if that teacher is understood the Dhamma, then you can get that understanding by living with him rather than transferring the knowledge only. And in this evolution, I can see clearly that the experiential, transferring understanding was not happening sometime in back days. Because of that link has broken. Because of that, nowadays the knowledge is sharing than the experience, understanding. Because of that, it's a little bit harder to practice Lord Buddha's Dhamma in this era. But if we go with our experiential learning, we could understand the cause of suffering and within ourselves, and get rid of the psychological suffering that we are having in prevailing society than ever in our history. For example, I think in US, it's considered as more than 40% of population having the clinical level depression. So I think it's a crisis in US right now. So this era, it is very harder to practice. And actually it is in this era, our duty is much more bigger than in all the eras in our history, because nowadays people are suffering with psychological issues.
Venerable Anuruddha, why do you think it's so harder to practice Dhamma now?
No, I mean, because most of people going with the knowledge rather than going with the experiences. Because in Lord Buddha's practice, even we need to understand it by ourselves, because no one else can't understand it yourself by themselves, because you have to understand it by yourself. So because of that, you have to be aware about yourself and understand. That is why knowledge, in this era, people think knowledge is understanding. So that is why it is very harder to go in this path.
Okay. Very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Venerable Anuruddha, for sharing your honest experience and thoughts with us. I think our friends who are watching us on YouTube and Facebook Live, they are really enjoying this discussion today, especially today's topic. And I would like to give a kindful reminder to all our friends. If you have any particular questions, please make a comment. I might take your question and ask from the Venerable Monks and Nuns. So please feel free to write your question on Zoom or YouTube or on Facebook. So now we have Venerable Samitratana, who is from Oxford, England. It's midnight for you, Venerable Samitratana, and I know you have something very interesting to share with us. Let me ask you just a question. Have you ever experienced any difficulty that made you very hard to practice Dhamma?
Yes, Bante, of course. I think I have to say about that as well a little bit in my among these facts, I think. So, yes, so thank you very much, and Teruvan Saranai. Most Venerable Mahasangha. So I'm truly pleased to talk about this very wonderful and philosophical topic. So I think yes, I was anticipating to talk about three aspects in this topic, which is what is the Buddhist life really, and I can understand the varieties of human problems in society, and what is the concept of time with regards to my some observations and some research as well. However, in my point of view, I think the Buddhist life is towards the understanding of reality. So it is, I think it depends on the conventional truth and the absolute truth. So if I talk about the conventional truth, I think it derives from some theories, some systems, and some contents. I think it is really clear that I think in addition, when I talk about the absolute truth, it comes from the purity and human wisdom and the final and the ultimate nature of the truth. I think this is the difference. So I think there is no time matter. Then if we want to practice the Dhamma, if we want to understanding the real nature of the world, I think every time and each experience gives us the real opportunity to that. We cannot get rid of that anyway. If I say Sir Albert Einstein, who was the great scientist in the 20th century in the world, he said, life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. So I think as a Buddhist follower, or not just as a Buddhist follower, as a human being, we also have to get the correct moment in terms of Dhamma. Then how to get the correct moment in the words of conventional truth and the absolute truth, then we have to practice it. Otherwise, it is useless or meaningless, I think. Then Dhamma is there is no time matter. If I say the concept of time in the Buddhism, the Sambahula Sutta in Sanyukta Nikaya, Akaliko, Sanditiko, it is timeless and it is unconditioned by time and season. Yes, I think it is of course that, because it's about human understanding. So understanding about the world and about the human interior life and exterior life as well. I would like to add another scientist who was known as the David Bohm. I think he was David Bohm. He was a Nobel laureate for physics in the 20th century, and he was the chief professor in physics at the University of London. He said the very difficult task is the maintaining human mentality and the understanding and responding to human problems that derive from human mind and consciousness. But the maintaining and understanding exterior materials and physical phenomena are really easier. Other than that, I think this is the matter of that. So yes, in spite of that, I wanted to say at the current time, we have a variety of problems in terms of in terms of social issues, economic issues, and political and religious issues. I think it is very clear at this time because at some time we are having a varieties of news like global warming, global economic crisis, and climate change, and some vulnerable and traumatic diseases all around the world. So, however, I think this is the nature. What is the Buddha's advice? Instead of that, we have to go through that and we have to get the wisdom and the lots of insights from that. Uh, yes, I would really be pleased to add another citation from that. Yeah, I think it is also presented by this Albert Einstein. This is a very funny and enjoyable, I think. Albert Einstein has said, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I would spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem, 5 minutes thinking about the solutions. I think the greatest thing is to envisage and think of the problems and the current situations and the backgrounds and the environment around us. I think it helps and accommodates us to achieve this self-actualization, which is the real Buddhist life. So apart from all these facts, in my life, if I say, when I'm studying at at Oxford here, I think I am having a very different and controversial experiences because I am really strange student here. So as a Buddhist cultural student, I have to confront of lots of difficulties as a very young and some Asian ethnic and background student. So however, I think it is manageable and it is all right for me because as a student and as a Buddhist philosopher, I am trying to manage it in terms of Buddhism. Then, so all these very worst and some cruel and some non-humanistic messages and incidences, I try to use to improve my compassion and my loving kindness and my empathetic joy and my tolerance as well. So problems are really not the problems. So crisis is not really a crisis. I think crisis and problem, all these negative things are really a positive message or blessed message to go ahead and attain the supreme message of the Buddhist life. I think that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Venerable Samittaratana, for bringing more insights or sharing more insights regarding today's topic. And in fact, one friend who is watching YouTube asked, I know you used the word akalika, and he says, thank you, Bante. It's a question from AS. Thank you, Bante. Can you please speak about akaliko in reference to your topic question? I think we will discuss this. And Venerable Samittaratana, do you have any thoughts on that, the word akaliko, referring to the...
Yes, but indeed, I think akalika directly means there is no time matter. There is no need to worry about time. Every moment, every opportunity has to experience Dhamma. So there is no particular or specific time to perceive the absolute truth. But in terms of some cultural or some social matters, we have some particular time, but instead of absolute or the ultimate truth, we have no time, we have no any allocation for that kind of purpose. So every moment, each time, you have to practice it, you have to go ahead, and you have to pursue the Dhamma by yourself. I think this is the general idea.
Interesting. Very. Thank you so much. And now let's go next to Venerable Trudeau from Florida, USA. I know Venerable Trudeau, you were in a Pride Parade yesterday or day before. You were enjoying. So, anyways, that doesn't really matter. So, what's your take on today's topic? Please feel free to share with us. Is it harder to practice Dhamma now than the time of the Buddha?
Salutations to all of the venerables and nuns that are present today. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And yes, I sent you a picture of me attending Pride with my mom, actually. Again, this is part of my Buddhism Without Borders program. Whereas as a representative of the human race and as a representative of the monastic order, I go out there and show my support. And this goes in conjunction with today's topic. Is it difficult to practice the Dhamma? From my standpoint, I think it's actually the total opposite. Well, let's talk about what makes it difficult first and how the easiness outweighs the cons, the pros outweighing the cons. And let's talk about the cons. The cons is that if you're in America, well, actually both East and West, we live in a very opinionated society, whereas not a lot of people practices right speech. As a direct result of that, not practicing right speech, people are easily influenced by what it is that's being said. Therefore, it draws you away from the Dhamma. It draws you away from the truth. It draws you away from the true nature of reality of what that subject is, right? And it also, as it draws you away, it draws you towards the secular world, which is very dangerous. And we have heard this uttered many, many times by Venerable Jayasaro. We have even heard it uttered by other members of other religions, such as the Christianity, the Catholic religion, Cardinal and Archbishop Donald World, which they're raising flags in regards to the secular world. So now we reel it back in, and everyone who is watching, this is where we get reeled back in with members of the monastic that reminds us every time when you listen to a Dhamma talk, it reminds you. Because as humans, we simply forget. Matter of fact, I would say our primary task is to forget as humans. And it is no wonder that when you go to church, when you go to monasteries, why do we have to repeat ourselves over and over again? You know, every time when we end the conversation here, we cite the Vinaya. And every time when we come in, you know, we pay homage to the Buddha, to the Triple Gem. And over again, we remind ourselves to keep the precepts because we humans simply forget. Venerable Sanatha Vihari does a lot of research in psychology. Matter of fact, I believe him and I are very, very on the fast track about conducting research, cross-sectional, longitudinal, experimental, especially me with experimental research in psychology, in measuring our younger students about how much they forget when we teach them. And so that is what's going on with the con side of practicing the Dhamma. The pros is that it is the best time right now than ever before in that you have access to the Dhamma, access to insight.org, you know, buddhanet.net. You have instant information at your fingertips. You also have direct, unprecedented access to any venerables here that you see. Myself and other venerable like Sister Kanti Kemma, you know, these venerables and monks make themselves available to the public, whereas you can ask and clarify any clarifications, any ambivalence, ambiguity in regards to the teachings. Most of my students are like, well, Matter of fact, at the one student that I met at Pride, and we took a video together on my TikTok, and he was holding a drink when he met me. He was like, "Oh my goodness, I now get to see you. You're on TikTok," and he was holding a drink, and he was trying to hide the drink, and he says, "Isn't it from a Buddhist standpoint that that we can't drink?" I said, "No. You can drink. Go ahead, have a drink. Drink it right now." And I clarify, in the refraining of intoxicating substance, is that, you know, the Buddha wants you to have a good time. Simply put, the Buddha is only concerned, we Buddhists are only concerned when you do too much of it and it gets to the extreme point where you drink so much that you have no idea what planet you're actually really on. And you're doing things that you can't even remember the next day. That is pretty extreme. But in regards to the precepts, yes, you know, what is your middle way? What is your middle way? And so everyone has a different definition of middle way and definition of happiness. Sorry. And so again, the clarifications. Now, when we study, well, when I studied, you know, I went deep into Ajahn Chah's teachings. I went deep into other venerables that are not alive anymore. So therefore, you know, the times that when I study Dhamma, I've been studying Dhamma for 20 years. And you know, I don't get these the opportunity that everyone else has in regarding to asking a living venerable. And so when I listened to Ajahn Chah, again, it was more technological, you know, put earplugs in and just take all of his teachings in as much as I possibly can, trying to disseminate, trying to interpret, and trying to pretend like he's sitting here right next to me. So again, when we fully dedicate ourselves with patience and diligence in the practice of the Dhamma, again, this is the best time in the world to do so, to find yourself a good qualifying, authentic teacher, to find a Kalyanamitta that will stand with you, next to you during this path, to solidify a commitment that I want to be Buddhist. I'm going to practice the Buddhist way because I believe in the teacher. I believe in the process, that it will in fact lead me to the path of true inner peace, true inner freedom, true inner liberation, as it has for us here, as it has for myself. And we teachers hope to inspire for you and the rest of the world by and through our own practice. And with that inspiration, again, it reinforces the process, the methods that the Buddha left us to stay straight on the path. And, you know, I try to keep it fun, and hopefully everyone here also try to keep it easy, concise, to the point, and less confusing when it comes to the Dhamma. There is so much joy in practicing the Dhamma and so much joy in practicing meditation. And there is everyday growing research with the latest book that I have seen with Dr. Siegel, Siegel, I think he's PhD. I don't think he's MD. At Barnes & Noble, where he is presenting, again, up-to-date research on the benefits of meditation. And again, this is to cast away your doubts, one of the 5 hindrances when you actually enter meditation. So I hope that this was a compelling case for me to make for everyone, and that we should focus on what is working right for us now in times of change, in times of difficulties in the world. But after you have received the teachings so deeply, so profoundly, and so clearly, all of these things roll right off your skin. You're not to be moved by anything that is good or bad, said the Buddha. You are to train yourself so that you're unmoved by the most recent issue, Roe versus Wade, abortions, and everything else that the venerables above have previously mentioned. So I'd like to yield the floor back to other venerables, but thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Venerable Trudeau, for sharing your honest experience. And I know as young monks and nuns, we are actually hanging around with a lot of people from all walks of life, people who are coming to see us with all kinds of issues, personal issues, social issues, global issues. And so it's Dhamma taught by the Buddha. Of course, it's akalika. It has no time. It's a timeless Dhamma. It can be practiced. The solution given by the Buddha is timeless. It can be practiced by anyone beyond, as we say, beyond the borders, you know. So thank you so much, Venerable Tridel, for bringing even awareness of Dhamma to the people during that Pride Parade. All right, so now let's go to Bante Sankicha from Detroit, Michigan, USA. And before that, I see Bante Pemaratan is also here from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, USA. Thank you for coming. I will ask you a question later. Bante Sankicha, what do you think? Is it harder to practice Dhamma now than the time of the Buddha?
Thank you very much, Bante. My respect and honor to all the Venerable Bantes and our Dhamma friends online. It's a pleasure to share these thoughts regarding this special topic today. When we talk about the universal aspect of Dhamma as the main focus today, we all came to know actually from the ideas, thoughts of our Venerable Bantes, the universal aspects of the Dhamma, that the theories, the laws of nature, the life, and the world that Buddha spoke about, they are not changed in time. And another aspect to that is also we need to think about that the problems that we are facing today is not really different from the time of the Buddha, right? If we think about the basic questions that Buddha had during his the quest in search of the truth, you know, the birth, old age, getting sick, and eventually dying. So these are the basic problems even today. So this is one of the aspects of the universality of the teachings. You know, the other problems, all the issues are can be the superficial difference. You know, in that way, I don't see actually the problems that we are facing today, the problems that people experienced those days are different. You know, but the manifestations of these problems, issues, suffering can be different. You know, and we can see that as a result of this evolutionary process, as we go through a lot of changes in this time. You know, there are so many different distractions, problems, negativities out there, you know, the social medias and all these things. But if you think about what mostly matters, you know, is it the external conditions or what is going on in the world out there, or is it something inside, right, inside of me? So this is a very important clarification that we have to make, especially when we try to apply the Dhamma into our everyday life. You know, no matter what is out there that are distracting us, but the most important thing is that when we are vulnerable to these negativities, conditions, if we are ready to change, actually, because of these outside conditions, we cannot stop suffering or any other negativities coming on our way. So therefore, it's very important to know, actually, when we learn the Dhamma, when we learn about the practice, whenever we want to get the best out of the practice, especially in this time, according to my opinion, actually, it is a matter of being smart. You know, if we know how to use the Dhamma, if you know what exactly you need to know from the Dhamma, even, not the whole Tripitaka maybe, right? It is impossible to learn and memorize all the teachings, but at least if you can understand your issues, your problems, you know, whatever you are having difficulty with, and then look for it in the Dhamma and search for it. And if you know how to skillfully apply these techniques, you know, methods into your experience, your life experience, you can find solutions there. So time doesn't matter in that way. So in that case, I really appreciate these teachings of the Buddha. In one particular discourse, Buddha mentions that, you know, there are some people, some practitioners who are living in the forest, in the jungles. They are maintaining a life of a town or city. But there are certain practitioners, Dhamma practitioners, who are living in the cities, but they are maintaining a lifestyle just like they are living in a forest. So we can see that it's a matter of how we understand it, how we assimilate these teachings. It's being so smart. I think if we know how to use it, it is the magical word today. The present moment, right? The present moment. Everything is to be experienced, practiced within this moment. So if we can simply correct ourselves within this present moment, identifying our true values, what are the most important things for my life. So that way we can learn how to reorient our life. We can come in line with all the aspects, incorporating with the teachings and everything. So my message is that, for all the people who are having these issues with the present day today, having difficulties with the teaching, so the practice, it is being so smart, being wise, how to understand our needs and how to apply the necessary teachings into our everyday life. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante Sankicha. As one phrase that I would like to highlight: be smart in practicing Dhamma. No matter which age you live in, it could be the time of during the time of the Buddha, even the 21st century. If we are not being smart, we are going to create a lot of sufferings for ourselves. So there is a question from one of our friends who are watching us on YouTube. Anne Nittis is asking a question. Thank you for your time and service given. Here's a question. Many monks, etc., stay in monasteries. Is that due to the world being not conducive or too hard to learn in? Was Buddha secluded from life? I think Bhante Sankicha touched on that question a bit. Why monks live in the forest. So do you have any other thoughts?
Right. Yeah, actually, I can talk about it.
Yeah.
Why would they introduce this monastic life? Sectoral life for spiritual practice is to be very convenient and be fully dedicated to it. That's the purpose of living a monastic life. And we know if you are living a normal, ordinary life, there are so much distractions for you, right? You have to deal with a lot of problems, issues, obligations. So you have a limited time to dedicate to your practice. But it doesn't mean that a layperson cannot practice the Dhamma. Even to the considerable level of realization, this enlightenment, Dhamma can be practiced by anyone. So again, going back, defining our values, what you really want in your life, and learning how to incorporate the teachings wisely into your everyday life. So these two levels, these are just two levels of the practice, depending on your needs, how much you need it.
Okay.
Right? So it's open to anyone.
Okay, wonderful. Venerable Anuruddha from Cambridge, Canada.
Yeah, thank you, Venerable Says. I just wanted to clarify one thing that I mentioned the other thing, and also I'm not giving a different argument or anything here.
Yeah.
But one thing, because I see this, I told that it is harder to practice the Lord Buddha's the Dhamma in this era than the Lord Buddha's time. Because when we take the prevailing society, we can't see many arahants like it was in Lord Buddha's era. In Lord Buddha's time, there were millions of arahants or thousands of arahants. There are so many the stories about those thousands and millions of arahants. But in the present world, we can't see that much of arahant or enlightenment people in the present world. So clearly, we can see it is it's harder to practice in the present world, because if the practice is there and if the people are practicing in such a way, we should see the enlightened people as much as they are in the Lord Buddha's time. So that is why I clearly see the practicing of Dhamma in this era is a little bit harder for the people. But again, it, as all the other venerables has highlighted, Lord Buddha's Dhamma is not time bound. But if you have not understand that the Lord Buddha's Dhamma, because to practice Lord Buddha's Dhamma, you need to have that basic understanding. If you don't have that basic understanding how to practice the mindfulness, if you are not in the path, then it is really hard for you to practice. That is why we can't see that much of enlightened monks or the enlightened people in the present world compared to Lord Buddha's time. Having said that, actually we can, I will give a small clarification to the question that Bhante Saranpala asked earlier. So if we want to learn how to ride a bicycle, if you want to ride a bicycle, we can't just go and take a bicycle for the first time in our life and take the bicycle and ride it. Even though we learn or read about how to ride the bicycle, or we watch the YouTube videos, we watch many movies about how to ride the bicycle. Even how much we learn about how to ride a bicycle, we will not be able to ride the bicycle until you go and you ride it by yourself and learn the art of balancing the bicycle through that experiential learning. Yeah. So nowadays, people are learning about how to ride a bicycle without touching the bicycle or without taking the bicycle and learn the art of riding bicycle. Okay. They are learning about how to ride a bicycle with the information and everything. They are talking and reading and watching everything, and they just try to learn the how to ride the bicycle with the knowledge, not taking the bicycle and actually riding it and learning it. That is why I see the people are having this difficulty of practicing Lord Buddha's life, because they are trying to learn the practicing of Lord Buddha's life rather than practicing it. That is the answer.
That's the interesting point you made, yeah. Anuruddha, is like, I think as we know, there are 3 steps of Pariyatti, Patipatti, and Pativeda. At the moment, people are doing the Pariyatti, they are learning, but they are not doing the Patipatti, yes. The practice. So, yeah. So anyway, that's a very interesting point. So now, let me just make it very simple for everyone to understand. Let's take the 5 precepts for the lay people, okay? Refraining from taking life, refraining from stealing, refraining from sexual misconduct, refrain from lying, refrain from consuming alcohol and drugs. So do you think, now this is a question, maybe Venerable Shanta Sobana, okay? You raised your hand. So do you think practicing the 5 precepts is harder now than the time of the Buddha? You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, actually, I think this is the time period that we can practice 5 precepts without any difficulties. The very reason that we have enough human experience to understand the killing and all the sexual misconducting and taking all the unnecessary things, intake, that all the drugs and alcohol and that things, stealing, we have enough experience. And I think more than any other time, we are capable to guard ourselves and protect ourselves from that unwholesome things. And at the same time, I want to bring some other information regarding that the 2 questions asked about the Akalika. So when it comes to Akalika, that the Dharma is not limited to particular time. And other thing is the Dhamma, not us, we are bound to time, but the Dhamma is immediately effective. So then if we are capable to get out of our egocentric, self-centered mind and surrender to the Dhamma with the faith, then we will immediately get the benefit. But so if we think, we have so much time and we can anytime can get access to Dhamma. No, we don't have that, because we are we belong to time, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why that the Buddha's final verse don't be delay.
Yeah.
So as soon as possible, try to get access to them. But the Dhamma is it has no time, particular time. It not belong to a time. So, and other thing is that the monks are practicing in the forest and jungles, and they have their very monastic way of deeper, practice. But we have to understand, when it comes to the teachings of the Buddha, it is not that blocking or closing our senses and going away from the life. It doesn't matter whoever practice it, but that is not the purpose. Guarding ourselves and understanding and developing our mindfulness is the very essence of the Buddha's teaching. So when it comes to your mindfulness, you are capable to understand how things come to be as they are. You don't need any kind of other knowledge or any kind of other help. So that should be the main purpose. And other thing is, why we talk like this today, because when it comes to the world, and mostly when I work with the students, what I learn, they misunderstood the Buddhism. They mostly think it is kind of like a, based with the discipline. So that is what they think. And sometimes, and there was an incident, and one student came, and he was not, he had a very, long pace and grumpy pace. So I asked, why you like this? No, my mother told, don't smile, don't laugh with the monks. So it's like that. They think it's kind of like, you have to behave so disciplined in front of the monk, and kind of like that. And other thing, that one thing is that people misunderstand what is Buddhism. They go with the precept or disciplinary code, but when it comes to that, it is mindfulness. And the next one is that there are so much information today. Very easily you will get tired about this life. That is good. If you get tired, that is good, because why? Then you look for solutions.
Okay.
And other thing is that during Buddha's time, it was not easy like this. And Buddha had a very difficult time even with the monks, and there were monks, and they didn't give up themselves, and they went through, a lot of arguments, challenging with the Buddha. And it was not a very easy path for him to introduce this Dharma. And another thing is, there are a lot of people today getting benefit out of this environment. We don't see. As a very good example here with our Sanath Vihari. I really proud about him, and I know him personally. Yeah, because look at him, he went through very different background, and today see where he is. That transformation of life, and it happens everywhere around, and especially after this COVID situation, people went to that mindfulness practice, and the people start to look for that what is this immune system, and how you can get healthy by yourself and develop a very sustainable way of healthy lifestyle. And more than any other time, I think around the world, the Buddha statue, everywhere the people buy it. Why? Because they start to look into that. And I think that we don't see that path, and a lot of people and learn about the life, learn the Buddha's teaching, and they transform through this environment. I think that is one of the greater blessings that we all can experience, and even look at ourselves, that how we get the benefit. We born in Sri Lanka, and now we are in the other side of the world, and look at how many people and come and look for help. And other thing is, when it comes to the truth, so today there are so much informations, and the Buddha's teaching, more than any other time, everywhere it is spread, and people understanding it, and all the science and the technology accepting it. And day by day, through this, the timeline that we go through, I think we have a great opportunity to give the service to others, and at the same time get the benefit out of that all the situations, and become more better people ourselves. And when it comes to the Buddha's essence of the teaching. It's a purification of our own mind.
Yeah.
I think we have so much opportunity for that.
Yeah, I think there's a friend in who is watching on Facebook, Vimal Jayakodu, who is saying, but isn't it easier to practice now because of new technologies? Good example, this discussion, which we could not do before the internet was invented. That is so true. So thank you, Bhante Sobana, and thank you, Mr. Vimal Jayakodu, for making that comment. Bhante Kusala, what's in your mind? Do you think it's harder, or do you have any other stories to share with us?
Well, Bhante, in that question somebody asked, she asked if the Buddha lived in the forest, secluded time. He did not. He lived in forest only occasionally, and he came back into towns, villages, kingdoms, and traveled all the time, meeting new people, greeting them, and even visiting non-Buddhist places. And they welcomed him very well because he had this reputation for being the Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
And they even knew the qualities the Buddha had, the 9 qualities of the Buddha. So I know I must say this as well, that when the Buddha was approached by Devadatta, the cousin monk of the Buddha, asking 5 requests. One of the demands was that monks must live in the forest for lifetime. The Buddha refused that. He did not grant that permission for practical reasons, because forests aren't the reason. Forest is not in the forest. It's actually how forestly that you make your mind, that you bring the forest with you, you bring the temple with you, and it is there you find peace and harmony within. So if anyone claims that the Buddha lived a secluded life only in the forest, that's not true. But he avoided chaos. When there was so much noise, even among the visitors that came to see the Buddha was like, no, ask them to be quiet. I'll be happy to talk to them when they are quiet. So Buddha preferred a quieter environment, even in the monasteries, town monasteries where he lived. There were busy kingdoms. Kings came to see the Buddha, and these rich business people came to see the Buddha, and he treated them. There were times he lived in the forest, and sometimes, I remember the story of King Ajatasattu visiting the Buddha in the forest and thinking, what if my son lives in harmony, in peace, just like these monks? He even he questioned the minister, his physician Jivaka, bringing him to this place. Are you trying to trap me in something? Because he had so much fear he was dealing with after his brutality of the way he treated his own father. But again, at that scene where he saw the Buddha and the monks living in a park, so deeply stilled and so calm, and that kind of intrigued him. He wanted his son to be just like these monks. So it didn't matter where the Buddha lived. In those places, there was silence, there was calmness, there was peace, and there was this energy that they felt. So again, I think it is also the time that we should question about so many rituals and pujas and wasting food and all that we do in the name of Buddhism. I don't think the Buddha would appreciate this much of armies of pujas. He would encourage pratipatti puja, where we do more practice, and that becomes an offering to the Buddha. But why don't we see many arahants now? Isn't that an interesting question to ask? I think because of all the comments given by the monks, I think I'm hoping to see many arahants in the future. But although someone claims that they are an arahant, it's hard to believe they are because of all the false arahants that are around. claiming to be arahants, claiming to be enlightened. So that's a problem.
Okay.
I think so. I think those are the points. We also need to kind of be updated and still strengthen our practice using any technology, anything that we have. The whole canon is translated into English and available online. And it's a matter of so much dealing with an infodemic, like a pandemic, so much information coming our way, and we have that knowledge, but we have less practice from within, inspiring us from within. I think those are some points I'd like to share.
Yeah.
What we need is not arahants. I think what we need is people alive, who are alive and practicing the basic principles like 5 precepts. So with that, I'll end my comment. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bhante.
Kusala. And Venerable Chandananda, I know we have many hands raised. Let's see, we are coming to the end of the discussion, but we can have extra 5 to 6 minutes and then we'll finish. Bhante Chandananda, what's your take on today's topic? What's in your mind?
Thank you very much for giving me opportunity.
Yeah.
Bhante, so my answer to the original question is whether it is more difficult to practice now when compared to the time of the Buddha. Actually, my answer is time specific and also person specific, because the 5 faculties and 5 powers, those faith, energy, wisdom, mindfulness, etc., those things should be balanced to have a very a sustainable journey. So if the particular person is striving too much, I might say slow down, it is not the proper time to practice like that. As an example, if somebody comes and sit under a pine tree saying that I will not rise from this seat unless I become enlightened, like the only enlightened Buddha, I might say, oh, my friend, it is not time to practice in that way, because it is not the right time to, it might not be the right time, because actually Venerable Brahmavanso had done that in his life, when his lay life, and he failed. So, but in most of the cases, our people are not energetic enough. So when I meet such people, I always tell them, now is the right time to practice. Why we are going to postpone? Now, as an example, actually it is, I can provide certain evidence to tell you that it is easy to practice now. As an example, at the time of the Buddha, chances are very high that we were not even in the human realm to get this holy message. Now we all are in the human world. That is why we talk this spiritually enhancing talk, and we share our wisdom, and we have got a golden chance to practice. Now it is easy to practice. And Dhamma is well taught, and we are going to, with this well taught Dhamma, we can make things easy. So actually, once I saw notable famous meditation teacher Jack Cornfield, he has posted on his Facebook, difficulties make our path. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Difficulties make our path. Whenever there is difficulty, there is time to practice. There is a good chance to be a good Buddhist. And now is the time to practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Practicing Dhamma is the most important. Dhamma can be practiced anytime. It has no. So I know Long Island Buddhist we have, that is Bhante Nanda. Bhante Nanda, do you have anything to, you raised your hand?
Whether the monks and friends of the Dhamma, is very interesting discussion. You know, the Prince Siddhartha, while when he was doing his great renunciation on the way, he met King Vimsa, and he asked, "Why, Prince, you are so young? Why you are doing this? Why you are going to the forest?" You think, having seen their sensual pleasures, And have you seen detachment from sense desires? In search of eternal truth. I'm going in search of eternal truth and peace. If you compare that, if you consider that what Prince Siddhartha taught, Prince Siddhartha said that time, this is the time, the better time to understand. We can see how this sensual pleasures, the danger of sensual pleasures, how, Venerable Shanta Shobhana and Venerable Shantana, I agree with you, what you emphasize. Those who have right effort and wisdom, this is the time, correct time to practice, easy time to practice what Buddha said. And I personally know there are lay people, lay community. I personally know some well-educated, well-educated gentlemen, people who live in Canada, USA, and England. They practice very well, according to my understanding. They wake up early in the morning, like 3 a.m. and do practice meditation 2 hours. And they have very good library, including Tripitaka, Atwa, Tika, and everything. And all the facilities are here. Those days, those who want to practice, they have to go arms round, or they have to go to the forest and wandering, find food and stuff. But now they have enough facilities. They can order and get everything to their house and wherever resident, and and they can save their time, and also they can find Kalyana Mitras here. Those who, if you make a sign, if you make a note in social media, I want to find this dumb point. There are many people, many monks and many lay people to, give support and help. Likewise, this is a very good opportunity, very good time to practice Dharma, I can say.
That's very interesting, Bante and Nanda. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts regarding today's topic. And in fact, I'm very impressed to see, Bante Nanda, how you're joining this program with your students at the temple, in Long Island. Thank you so much. It's so interesting. I'm so happy. So thank you. And lastly, just I know some monks actually highly talked about Bhante Sanata Vihari from Los Angeles. You being a Spanish monk living in Hollywood, how do you see this? Do you think it's harder to practice the Dhamma than the time of the Buddha?
Bhante, I don't think so. As all the venerables have already said, they've stated all the benefits that we have now and all the cons and all the pros and cons during the time of the Buddha. If we look at the suttas, we also see that there was people partying in the forest, playing drums, getting drunk. There was people committing adultery. I mean, humans are humans. Nothing's changed. The human kind of tendencies are there because of our kilesas, our asavas, and all these kind of things. Maybe certain ones are kind of more pronounced during certain periods. Maybe we're in a more greed period, and before we're maybe more in an aversion period. So maybe there's those kind of things, that the environment can contribute to. But I think it really depends on what many of the venerables were saying here. Many of the Bhantes is one's own, practice is the most important thing. One's own mind is the most important thing. So we shouldn't be focused on the Ataloka Dhammas, we should be really focusing on inside, like Puttasa Loka Dhammehi Chittam Yasane Kampati, like and so on and so on. I think that's the important thing. And when we talked about Akaliko, it also reminded me of that, that the Dhamma's timeless, and the last words of the Buddha were, Appamada Bhikkhus, don't delay, that the time to practice is now. So I can't really say anything that the other Bhantes said, but here in Hollywood, I think, it's the same as, in Magadha or in wherever else, during the time of the Buddha. People are people, and people are always going to be following their defilements. So there's no
So
difference.
do you think practicing Dhamma in Hollywood is harder than practicing Dhamma in Sri Lanka? Or
I think some parts, because, you know, in Sri Lanka, you may get caught up with all the pujas, and the pujas themselves can become like a silabata paramasa. So like it can be a hindrance.
Yeah.
So it, you know, each environment has its own particular difficulties, pros and cons. So you just have to be aware of them.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you. Thank you so much, Bhante Sanati Hari. And thank you, venerable colleagues, our monks and nuns, for making such a great contribution today regarding today's topic. And people greatly appreciated your words of wisdom, your stories. And of course, we can have more discussions about this, but we don't have enough time. So now I would like to respectfully invite Bhante Uparatana Naik Mahathir from Washington, D.C. to recite the Ovada Patimokkha verses today. Bhante.
Thank you, Venerable Brother, monks and nuns. Today is a wonderful, beautiful things. We're just starting. We have to continue that thing. Very wonderful. Wish you everybody healthy, wealthy, and success with the peace.
Yeah.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Sabba papassa akaranang kusalassa upasampada. Sacitta pariyodapanang etam buddhana sasanam. Hanti paraman tapotitikha nibbanam paramang vadanti buddha. Nahi pabjito parupaghati samano hoti parang vihetayanto. Anupavado anupaghato pati mokhecha sangvaro. Matanyutaca bhattasming bhantanca sayanasanang adhicitteca ayogo etang buddhana sasanang.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Bhante Uparatana, for beautifully reciting the word of Patimokkha verses. It always reminds me of going back to the time of the Buddha, as if Buddha or Buddha's disciples recited these verses. So it's a meditation practice for us. And today I'm very grateful to all our venerable brothers and sisters, and also to our lay friends who watched us on YouTube and Facebook Live, and also our friends who joined us on Zoom platform. It was such a beautiful discussion this discussion shed more light with respect to today's topic. And of course, Dhamma can be practiced anytime. It's a Kalika. So I would like to bring the blessings of the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha to all of you for your health and safety, for your long life. May Deva, celestial beings, continue to protect and guard you, and may all blessings be with you. With this in mind, now let us wind this up, and I will see you all in 2 weeks' time. Until then, all of you stay well and happy. Good night.
Thank you.